She don't love me like she say she does, but she say she does. She ain't riding till the wheels fall off, Mercedes does. Got my pedal to the metal, my phone breaking up. Tonight we making up, cause I don't live life safe enough. Oh no, 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 no.
Today we are watching Cassie just received the worst news ever. Now, as you guys may know, Diddy, the diddler, is actually getting out of jail. Most of the things that he was being accused for did not stick. But now on the other end of that, Cassie, who was kind of the person that spearheaded this whole situation, obviously she got some bad news. So let's get to it.
Cassie just received the worst possible news she could have ever gotten. And this is coming days after Diddy was acquitted on charges accusing him of trafficking her. This new development could bankrupt Cassie and take away.
I'm not gonna lie, this is diabolical. If the judges said that he didn't do it, I don't really know what to say. But this is diabolical. If he did do it, the diddler is on a generational run if he did not do this. I mean, if he did do this, he's on a generational run. Yeah, this is sick though. This is nasty work.
Away all $30 million that she received for being a victim of Diddy. Back in 2024, when the feds were investigating Diddy for racketeering, trafficking, among other charges, they had a conversation with Cassie. Cassie was cooperative, and the feds asked Cassie to give them a list of names of the male escorts that her and Diddy had freak-offs with. Cassie gave the feds a bunch of names. A lot of the names that Cassie gave was brought up at trial, and some of them was called to testify, one of them being the Punisher. And all the escorts that were
Bro's name is the Punisher.
Called to testify during the Diddy trial, they all testified that Cassie was who booked them and Cassie was who paid them. One escort in particular, Clayton Howard, he took it beyond Cassie just booking him. See, Clayton has a great deal of resentment for Cassie because he feels like Cassie involved him in something by giving his name to the feds that he didn't want to be involved in. So when he spoke to the feds, he went out of his way to notify the feds that he believed that Cassie was a co-conspirator, that Cassie was just as bad as Diddy, and that Cassie used Diddy power to torment the lives of other people.
One, I was in an economic position where I really needed the money. Two, Mr. Combs is incredibly powerful, and Miss Ventura had no problem in her use of that power, which has actually been revealed now because we've heard recordings of her threatening people. We've seen text messages. There are many different sides to people, and even Cassie is a normal individual. She has herself. There is a side to her that people don't know, the side that manipulated Sean Combs' power, the side that embraced his power and his position to do things that she wanted. So I was always afraid if I stopped coming, then I would start to have problems, because she threatened me several times not to come and made me feel uncomfortable that I would come to see her just to avoid any problem with Sean Combs. He's incredibly powerful. He has people that could follow me around, damaging my life for years, and it would cost him nothing to do it. So I want to say I continued in the situation, but not as much. There was many times that I did stall them, flake on them as the word goes, and not show up. But I kept the relationship strong enough that they never thought I was trying to turn on them or betray their secret.
Obviously, because he feels this way and has these.
That's sick though. Like, it don't really make sense why you would want a dude banging your girl. Even if he was watching sometimes he wasn't, or whatever it may be. Next level cuckery. I'm not trying to defend the diddler, but what I am saying is, if somebody is banging my girl and I'm watching it happen, I would be the one that is getting taken advantage of. Don't you think? We about to see what happened to her though. We about to see what news they talking about. Imagine if Diddy actually did all these things and then he beats the case. She ends up getting taken to court and then she goes to jail. Diddy would go down in the history books as the worst nigga ever.
His opinions on Cassie, he was never called to testify because it don't look great for your case as a prosecutor to say that Diddy trafficked Cassie when this man is saying that Cassie was just as bad as Diddy in his dealings with Diddy and Cassie. So he was never called to testify. He was brought up in trial. They say that him and Cassie was involved at the Four Seasons, but his testimony, his statements made to the feds was never brought up at trial. He wanted to testify because he had plans on outing Cassie before the trial and during the trial, but the feds did not allow it. Now, here's where things begin to get very tricky, and we begin to witness some foul play at work here. See, his lawyer was Tyrone Blackburn, the same lawyer who represents Lil Rod. Lil Rod was one of the first people who sued Diddy The feds actually used Lil Rod's lawsuit against Diddy to help structure this RICO case. So the feds was working with Tyrone Blackburn to make sure that his client Clayton Howard don't come out during the trial and don't speak out against Cassie and stays quiet until this trial is over.
That don't sound like tampering. I'm not defending Diddy, bro. If Diddy did this, lock him up. Put him behind bars. Throw him under the jail. I don't care. But the fact that somebody had negative stuff that would go against your case and you actively made sure that they didn't say none of that, the feds is a different breed.
So Tyrone Blackburn was giving Clayton Howard the runaround when Clayton Howard was telling Tyrone he was ready to file a lawsuit against Cassie while the trial was going on.
I have been trying to file litigation for this matter against Sean Combs and Cassie since I want to say March of 2024, maybe February. But I was represented by Tyrone Blackburn. And Tyrone Blackburn has a substantial amount of litigation against Sean Combs that the conviction of Sean Combs was dependent on him winning a lot of his civil cases. My attorney intentionally held the filing back to protect the credibility of Cassie. Tyrone Blackburn, he intentionally held it back. I have numerous communications to him where I am directly informing him to file. He would talk to the prosecutors and then he would duck me for weeks and not file the lawsuit. So this is why it was never filed.
Tyrone also represented Lil Rod and other people. So on top of the feds pressuring him to not blow this and to not allow this guy to file litigation against Cassie before the trial is over, he is also
I can say he's incentivized to not do it for his own sake. So we don't know, like we don't know if the feds was actually telling him not to do it. But for his own sake, it was against his own interest to do that. So I wouldn't put that on the feds. So, hey, the tampering, maybe not. But that dude, that lawyer, he doing some shaky-ish. You know what I mean?
incentivized for a guilty verdict to come for Diddy because he wants, for this guilty verdict to be in place so then he could take this guilty verdict, take it to a civil court, and get a lot of money for his other victims who were involved with Diddy. So Tyrone Blackburn was also incentivized for him not to sue Cassie as well, because once you put Cassie's credibility at question, that right there is the foundation of this entire RICO against Diddy. When Cassie falls, the case falls. And also, too, if the defense attorney gets wind that this dude is trying to sue Cassie, they would just call him in as a witness and have him testify to everything he's telling TMZ right now. So Clayton eventually realizes Tyrone is stalling him, so that he fires Tyrone and files the lawsuit eventually. His lawsuit is predicated on the Adult Survivors Act and also the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, where he will list Diddy and Cassie as co-conspirators. Here's where Cassie may be in trouble. So the law allows human trafficking victims with a right to sue those responsible for their trafficking. However, even if the courts find that Cassie, isn't directly responsible for this dude being trafficked, it was expanded in 2008 to specifically include trafficking survivors and allow victims to sue anyone who knowingly benefited financially or by receiving anything of value from the trafficking crimes committed against them. This can include the buyer of the Commercial Sex Act. Diddy was found not guilty in criminal court of trafficking Cassie. The court listed Cassie as an equal participator in this. And if Cassie was the one who was paying these dues, she was the one who executed the transaction. She paid for the Commercial Sex Acts. But beyond that, if they don't want to give her, she paid for the Commercial Sex Act, she undoubtedly benefited from this. She testified in court that Diddy gave her gifts. Diddy rewarded her. Diddy paid for her home. Diddy bought her expensive trips because she would engage in these free calls. That came with a $500,000 trip at Chanel. That came with cars. That came with houses. So undoubtedly here, Cassie is culpable in some way. And if you're Cassie and you are the public recipient of $30 million due to being the victim of Diddy, now you have a lot of people who was looking at that $30 million and thinking, I want a portion of that pie. Clayton Howard is just the first. If he is successful, trust and believe, bro, the hundreds of men that were involved in these free calls.
She's cooked. she'll be so cooked. Eternally cooked, bro. If he wins this case. If he gets money off of her, all of the people that had any relations with Cassie and got paid for it, it's raps.
They're coming out the woodworks too, and Cassie is now about to see herself in a situation like Diddy. Once one person sue, the entire army is coming, bro. The entire village want to cut. But I was able to recover Clayton Howard's lawsuit, and we're gonna go through exactly what accusations he's making against Cassie. He accused Cassie of trafficking him for commercial sex purposes, luring him with promises of gifts and favors, transporting him across state lines for prolonged sexual encounters. She allegedly held him for days, using coercion and fraud to keep him under control. She pressured and threatened Howard to make himself available for these encounters, using financial compensation and isolation tactics to ensure compliance. Now, she would apparently withhold his clothing and phone so he wouldn't leave and he would stay for these prolonged encounters. If you closed your eyes as I read that, you would have probably almost thought like I was reading a lawsuit from Cassie to Diddy. Because what he is accusing Cassie of is exactly what Cassie is accusing Diddy of. He will lay claim that he was drugged and manipulated by Cassie, and even claiming that Cassie admitted to drugging him. So Ventura allegedly drugged like Howard Clayton with controlled substances, including MDMA, at triple the doses she consumed to lower his inhibitions and facilitate sexual exploitation. She admitted to drugging him after he confronted her about an incident that left him disoriented and ill.
Bro, what? She provided Howard with substances like ecstasy, ketamine. Oh my gosh. No.
She provided Howard with substances like ecstasy and marijuana to keep him awake and compliant during encounters, manipulating him into continued participation. The argument that a lot of people will have that if this is true is that Cassie was acting on behalf of Diddy. Cassie was just doing things to make sure that Diddy enjoyed himself.
That's not an
and
excuse,
she was just
though.
carrying out acts or favors for Diddy. But then we have to go back to the racketeering and to the RICO that Diddy was charged with. If it's a criminal organization, then there are people under that organization who did things. The reason why Diddy had no co-conspirators was because the co-conspirator was also the alleged victim. So if Cassie was doing these things on behalf of Diddy or at the direction of Diddy, that don't make her any less responsible. She's still responsible for doing these things to someone if these things are true. When I got to this part of the lawsuit, I fell out my chair. I would think that if I'm like an escort and I'm dealing with Cassie and Diddy, the least of my worries is I could catch something. These people are extremely wealthy at the top echelon of society.
Oh, nah. I would not think that. I could tell y'all that's not a thought that's going through my mind, bro. Because these famous people, they be having shit. And they don't mind spreading it, bro. Because they got money. Look at Magic Johnson. Got so much money that he taking every medicine possible as soon as it come out. I'll be scared to mess with a girl that's famous. Bad place.
I don't think they would be carrying STDs around. But apparently I was wrong. Because according to Clayton Howard, Ventura initiated and insisted on unprotected sexual contact, disregarded Howard's safety, which led him to contracting chlamydia from her. When she was in court, Cassie did say that like she had like extreme like infections that like it would go like weeks. Her vagina would still be hurting, and that Diddy won't care. He would try to get it cured up quickly so he could get back to a freak off. So she already admitted in court that she would have these like infections so bad that after a while, like the medication was no longer working, and like that's how frequently she was getting these infections. Now, she later admitted, according to him, to contracting the STD and blamed Diddy's infidelity, showing reckless regard for Clayton's health. Her action resulted, now this is where it gets a little messy, okay? Now, he's claiming that he got her pregnant, and he's claiming that she aborted the pregnancy without informing him until later, continuing to demand unprotected sex. Now listen, bro, this is just trifling. Now you really can't sue someone for terminating your baby, especially not in the US. But yo, that just goes to show like how reckless Cassie was, specifically for her own personal autonomy. You reckless, bro. You getting pregnant, like you're not on birth, like bro, what's going on? I would think, bro, yo, if Diddy had numerous men busting loads in you, bro, like you would at least, I don't know, bro, get the tubes tied, get birth control, something, man. But you getting pregnant, STDs allegedly, my God. According to him, Cassie will record him in compromising positions without his consent, using these recordings for her and Diddy's mutual gratification. When confronted, she justified the recordings by demonstrating her enjoyment of them, further manipulating Howard. Because there were times, by the way, where like Cassie and the escorts would do things by themselves when Diddy couldn't make it, and she would record it, I guess. Now, deception and false pretenses. Ventura concealed her identity by using the alias Jackie Starr and misrepresented her relationship with Combs, claiming they were married to entice Howard into sexual encounters. In court, Cassie would testify that Diddy made her do it unprotected. However, in this lawsuit, this is why we begin to see why they didn't want this man on that stand, because he testified she lied to Diddy about reviewing Clayton's STD results to justify unprotected egg, pressuring Howard to continue despite his objections. Diddy was just convicted for transporting Cassie to engage in a freak-off, violating the Man's Act. So if Cassie transported these dudes to engage in a freak-off, then she violated the Man's Act too.
Nah.
Now, a lot of people in this country, well, the majority probably thinks Cassie is a victim in this trafficking scenario. Now, Cassie was a victim of domestic violence, 100%, no doubt. We witnessed it firsthand.
Yeah.
But a lot of other people do believe that Cassie was also a victim of trafficking. So when he filed his lawsuit against Cassie, the people who believe that Cassie is a victim of trafficking, they've been really hard on this dude. I mean, they've been doxing him. They've been attacking him online, calling him a bum. So he made a video speaking up for himself, and here's what he had to say.
So good morning. I am Dave, the man who has just sued Cassandra Ventura for damages involved in the Sean Combs sex trafficking trial. And I'm looking through social media and I see a lot of the women out there, particularly black women like myself, who choose to victim shame me and try to do everything they can to discredit me, because the truth is that the loss of the Sean Combs trial was a loss to the Me Too movement and to hating women like the women who are trying to insult me. So let me tell you something, you women out there who would like to insult me. This is my story. I was paid by Cassandra Ventura, for 8 years to be her male provider. I didn't have to be the best looking guy. I was the best in bed. And because I was the best in bed, guess what? I was given this arrangement. I was coerced. I was drugged. I was manipulated with promises of money and gifts for over a period of 8 years to continue to be this woman's provider at her expense and at the expense of Diddy. Now, at the time, legally, I didn't know my rights as well as I do now. I didn't create this conflict with Cassandra Ventura. She created it with me. She's the one who decided to bring up things that happened over 10 to 15 years ago to hold Sean Combs accountable for what was a partial truth. She's the person who introduced me to the U.S. Attorney's Office. She's the person who told the U.S. Attorney's Office about our relationship. So in essence, those out there who want to hate on me, who want to say that I'm attacking Cassie, you should realize the truth, that Cassandra Ventura, your idol, did this to herself. She exposed herself to liability when she got on the stand and decided to mention me as the male escort who was with her when she overdosed and Diddy made her have sex with him. That was a lie, people.
Huh?
Are you done?
No, I'm recording still.
My bad.
Okay.
Cassie had just woke up from sleeping 8 hours. Myself and Sean Combs were exhausted. We wanted to go home. Cassie's the one who forced that sexual encounter. People, she tells you that Sean Combs made her have sex on her menstrual cycle. I can't speak for anyone else but myself. But I know the one time that did happen, that Sean Combs was not responsible for that Cassie, in a drunken, intoxicated, hormonally imbalanced state due to her period, manipulated and forced herself on me during her menstrual cycle. And what I mean by that is I had no knowledge she was on her menstrual cycle because the room was completely dark. She manipulated the room.
Imagine doing some freaky things when you were younger to make some extra cash, but then you grew up and you moved on. You became a social activist. You're now protesting against the police, protesting political causes. And then you look up and your name is being listed in the biggest case, probably in like the modern era, listing you as a male escort, listing all the nasty things you did for money 10, 20 years ago. I think you'll be upset too, and you'll probably have a vendetta against the person who brought this upon your life. you will probably hate the person who dug everything up and brought you right back into this when you were trying to move on. Because, yo, you can find multiple videos about him protesting the police, protesting against the police, you know, like protesting police brutality. So it looks like he was trying to be at least an activist or at least get into politics. But now those prospects is over with, bro. Can you imagine voting for a mayor who was raw dogging Cassie in front of Diddy? Like, cut it out, bro. Like, that day is over with. Like, those days is done for. So, listen, man, I don't know. The vendetta against Cassie does throw a wrench into this because having this much vendetta and hatred for Cassie would probably, I don't know, incentivize you to kind of add some juice to some things regarding Cassie and Diddy. But I guess we'll find out in the court of law, man. So y'all let me know in the comments.
I wouldn't say that it necessarily is a vendetta. Would that be like, yes, he probably didn't like that she mentioned his name. Honestly, she probably screwed herself over because if she was going by a different name, he probably didn't even know till this day that it was actually Cassie. And then the case happens and he finds out it was Cassie and he's like, both of y'all did this to me, not just him. There's a lot of messy stuff going on, bro. And you have to understand, like, he is actually a victim. If he puts together a lawsuit and sues them and he wins, it's going to be against Diddy and Cassie. We gonna figure it out in court. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that other shit. If y'all want to go get one of my toys, go head over to bagboytoys.com. I got a big one right there. That's the big bag boy right there. Other than that, I love y'all. Peace.